Welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, the multi-talented DJ Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, May the 1st. Happy May to everyone. And if it is Wednesday night,
it's certainly Black Men Speak. So if you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. And Tom, let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music, which I jam to. You can't see me dancing in the background, but that's what I'm doing in my chair as the music is playing.
I said there might be a good thing they can't see you dance now.
Oh yeah, it is a good thing they don't see it. And then to Forest Films in our own studio, providing our virtual studio, which allows us to bring the show to you each week, faithfully, 8 p.m. Central. And with that being said, Tom, let's get to do what we do best, which is bring news and information about the Black community to the masses with the most informative and progressive news show, talk show on social media.
Yeah, folks, if you want to be smart at work or at home, make sure that you are tuning in every Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. because we are definitely bringing the funk. So without that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our show. We have a jam-packed agenda for today.
Jam-packed.
So let's go ahead and get this started. We're going to start out, of course, with our birthday babies for the first week of May. We got a couple of folks this week that you may know. This gentleman, probably you young folks, millennials or even zennials may not know this younger face. But, you know, for those of us who are Gen X, maybe some of the younger boomers may know the Ray Parker Jr., probably most famously known to the theme song to Ghostbusters. Jimmy, he's been around for quite a while, still looking pretty young and aging very well. And we want to wish him a happy birthday today because he has a birthday on the day. Anybody who has Ray Parker Jr. in your phone, make sure.
Okay.
So happy birthday to Ray Parker Jr. And, you know, they just did one of the remakes on Ghostbusters, and so his legacy is still hanging in there. All right.
The royalty check clears, Tom. That's all that matters.
Yes, sir. Our next birthday is on tomorrow, May the 2nd. I think all generations probably know this face, Dwayne Johnson, otherwise known as The Rock. Depending on what age you are, you may know him, of course, as a athlete. I think he played at the University of Miami, Jimmy, and may have played very briefly in the NFL. But of course, most people know
not in the NFL, but in the Canadian Football League.
Canadian, gotcha. But of course, most folks know him as an actor. And then behind the scenes, he has a lot of business ventures. He's an entrepreneur. He was the co-owner of the XFL, which has now been consolidated, I think, in the UFL, which I believe is the United Football League, if my memory serves me correct. So, a man for all seasons. He has reinvented himself multiple times. His father, by the way, was a professional wrestler, which, of course, he was in the wrestling game for a while as well. So give him a birthday shout out tomorrow as well. And then the last of our birthday babies for this upcoming week, the talented singer and songwriter, Alita Adams. This is probably for the grown folks in the room, but singer, songwriter, also 4-time Grammy nominated artist, and also I believe she's also been nominated for a couple of Soul Train Music Awards. Her birthday is on May the 4th, which is, I believe, this Saturday. So definitely a happy birthday to that talented and
birthday.
Absolutely. Want to give a couple shout outs to a few of our folks who are already joining in on the chat line. First, of course, our good friend Asar Al-Kabilan out of Austin. Uncle Asar, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Miss Audrey K. Booker, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Cousin Audrey K. Miss Dominique Bidings out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. And then, of course, our good friend and fraternity brother, the Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire.
That's right.
Prairie View, Texas. So I want to thank you guys for joining us early.
Thank you so much.
And for those of us who are still out there joining in, of course, we've got a lot of stories coming in today. Want to get your feedback, your thoughts, your questions. Chime in.
So get those fingers to moving, Tom, on the chat line.
What's that?
I said everyone needs to get those fingers to moving on the chat line.
Yes, yes. We want to hear what you got to say. So
we want to hear what you have to say.
Gotcha. So we want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we're going to have a fun show. So why don't we go ahead and get started with
Let's do what we do best, Tom.
Exactly. So for those of you who may have been so busy working, you haven't had a chance to keep up with the news, University of South Carolina recently unveiled a monument honoring 3 African Americans who helped desegregate the campus 60 plus some odd years ago. And we're going to share a little story because this is the type of stuff you typically probably not going to see on CNN, but of course we're bringing it to you on Black Men Speak. Current South Carolina University President Michael Emeritus and a couple of other administrators unveiled a 12-foot bronze monument dedicated to the work and legacy of Robert Anderson, Henry Monteith Treadwell, and James Solomon, all former students who blazed the trail for desegregation on the campus roughly 60 years ago. Family members were of the Trailblazers were present at the unveiling. The president stated this monument, standing tall at the heart of our historic horseshoe, will bear witness every day to the university's promise to provide educational opportunities for everybody. And
so Tom, I just want to point out, can you go back to the previous picture, please?
Of course. Give me just a second. Yes.
Now, obviously, they're doing a press conference based on the number of mics that they have there. But Tom, you notice something? Look how well dressed.
Yes.
And I've noticed this from watching Eyes on the Prize, other documentaries. Folks during the 50s and 60s, when they protest, they did not go to the protest looking like bums. I mean, look at this picture, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, jackets, ties, nice dress, hair done, no sagging, no pants hanging off the ass, no hoodies. I mean, these people are coming, really, they look like professional workers already, and they're students. And when you hold yourself a certain level of respect, and this is why I appreciate that generation of our ancestors, Tom, they did things with class, even when they were protesting. It wasn't about being disruptive and making noise and bringing attention to some cause. They did it with a degree of dignity and class, which honors the movement itself. And these young kids today want to complain and protest. I have no problem with you protesting. Can you do it with a little class and dignity? You can learn something from the 50s and 60s.
Well, Jimmy, I can't disagree with you. I mean, if I look at my parents' old school book, things of that nature, the way that our parents and grandparents carried themselves in general is just a different generation. I don't want to say it's been, but it's definitely been diminished. And, you know, a lot of it came down to image and pride in yourself, your family, and your community. And, you know, with our parents, back when we were young, used to let us out the door if they were taking us to school. They always used to remind us, remember who you represent, your family
Right.
and your community. And I'm not saying that anything is lost on that now, Jimmy, but it's definitely a different generation. No, I'm not saying anything one way or another, but when we look at that generation of people, and you got to remember, these are folks who are 18, 19 years old. These
Young
are not
people, Tom.
professional corporations.
Yeah, young people.
Yeah.
Who took pride in themselves and then brought it every day. So, yeah, congratulations to them. Well deserved.
Absolutely. And so, all that being said, in 2022, the school commissioned famous sculptor Basil Watson, who has previously created projects honoring our frat brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Representative John Lewis as well in the past. And, you know, this guy has obviously done a lot of great work as well. For those of you who may not know the face, you definitely know some of his work. We want to congratulate, of course, Mr. Watson on being commissioned to do such an outstanding job on the University of South Carolina for such a historic moment, Jimmy. And, we have to continue to fight for what we believe is going to carry our legacy for our community for the next generation. So we want to, of course, not only congratulate the family of these great pioneers, but also, of course, the university being in the South and doing what they felt was the right thing and being on the right side of legacy as well.
Yes.
Because
and if you're in the area, you may want to stop by, take a picture. It's a really nice setup they have there.
So again, congratulations to the families of these three great pioneers. Of course, also congratulations to the University of South Carolina. We will move on to our next story. For those of
what's your
you,
next story, Tom?
Back kind of in your earlier days, Jimmy, I know you spent some time at the University of New Orleans in New Orleans and spent a little time there. Xavier University is now about to establish the next one of the few medical schools in the United States that is associated with historically Black college and or university. So Xavier in New Orleans and the Ochsner Health recently signed a legal agreement to create the nation's 5th HBCU allopathic medical school, with physicians asserting that it can mitigate disparities that, quite frankly, don't work too well on behalf of African Americans, who are 2 times as likely to meet their demise from some of the same diseases and health conditions as the mainstream community, where there are 189 predominantly white medical schools in the U.S. and only 4 HBCUs at current. Those are Meharry Medical College in Tennessee, Howard in Washington, D.C., Morehouse, of course, in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science in California. And so, Jimmy, once this goes through, this will be only the 5th medical school associated with historically Black college and university. And I know we talk about this all the time, that, when we went through COVID and then we go through other even normal everyday healthcare issues, that unfortunately everybody doesn't get the same treatment. And unfortunately, when downtown catches a cold, South Dallas in this case catches the flu. And so this is very, very interesting news, Jimmy. The students at Xavier College of Medicine, the only HBCU medical school in the Gulf Coast, will receive cultural competency training in addition to a curriculum that examines and promotes health equity. African American doctors who graduate will be role models in underserved communities. And most of the doctors in the U.S. often don't understand customs, challenges, fears, and sources of pride within the African American community. And as a result, Jimmy, we as African American men are probably the least likely to go get our checkups for various reasons. And so this is hopefully something that's going to help address these issues. Less than 6% of doctors in the United States are African American, even though we represent about 13 or 14% of the overall population. Also, the Center for Disease Control reports that African American people are less likely than the mainstream community to be current on screenings for breast cancer, cervical cancer, and colon cancer, which does impact our community disproportionately. So this is big news, and it's great news, Jimmy.
Well, Tom, is long overdue.
Yeah.
Us complaining about being underserved, underrepresented, and not doing anything about it, is to me is foolish. So the fact that Xavier, which already graduated a large number of pre-meds and pharmacy graduates, so this is just the next evolution by which other HBCUs will join in the cause. Also, we need definitely more Black medical schools around the country to graduate more Black doctors. So there's nothing wrong with that. So the rest of you, take a page from Xavier. Do what you can to evolve towards that, because your community could definitely use more Black doctors.
All
What's
right.
the next story, T?
All right. This is a story, Jimmy, that we have been tracking for about the last year. So I think you probably remember this face, ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Yarl, who unfortunately was shot
Shot, yes.
and probably came within a couple of strokes of his life being taken by someone who claimed that he thought he was a robber, and the young man was simply going to get his young brother. And the street naming convention on the street that he was going to get his brother was very close to the one that he went to. And unfortunately, the man shot through the window, shot him in the head and shot him in the arm. But the family of Ralph Yarl is now suing the man who shot him in the head and the arm in April of 2023. The complaint filed by Ralph Yarl's mother, Cleo Nagney, claimed that the 83-year-old man, Andrew Lester, was negligent when he shot Yarl without warning. And I guess what makes things worse is after he shot him and the young man was on the ground, he shot him again as if he was not already disabled and shot. The case also describes, or the complaint also describes, that the pain and suffering of Yarl and the permanent injuries he sustained as a result of the shooting. And by the way, Jimmy, I know this young man wanted to study at my alma mater as well, Texas A&M University. So obviously he was a very good student. Was doing very well in school. In addition to him, of course, playing in the band. They're saying if the man who was charged is saying, I mistakenly thought this person was a robber, he's saying that they're saying that it's negligent. You weren't paying close enough attention because everybody who rings your doorbell can't be a robber. And the lawsuit also states that they are going after the Highland Acres Home Association in the neighborhood where Yarl was allegedly shot. The lawsuit argues that although the association already had a policy in place that should have prevented this event from happening, they should have been aware of Lester's access to dangerous weapons and the racial animus that could have led to this. So with that being said,
I'm not sure how a homeowners association is going to know what's in a person's heart and mind and what weapons they have and what they're thinking. So that may be a little bit of a stretch. But, gentlemen, when you're suing people, you go after as many big pockets as possible. You never know from shaking the tree who's going to decide to just settle and to get rid of something. So it's a legal strategy, but, yeah, I just don't know how reasonable it is that the homeowners association would know all of this that you're charging them for as responsibility.
Well, for what it's worth, I know that he's got a lot of medical bills. And also the other issue is that it's been over a year. There doesn't seem to be very speedy progress in terms of getting to the criminal trial. And so the attorney is thinking that, maybe this will be a somewhat of an inducement for them to get the ball rolling on the criminal case, because Lester is currently out on bail. I'm not going to say living his best life because he's 84 years old and probably doesn't have a ton more years left, but he's out in the free world. And quite frankly, Jimmy, I would hate to say this, but if that was you and me, we would probably be behind bars and probably would have had a pretty high enough bail that it would have been pretty tough for us to get out. But with his age, they probably gave him a pass.
Yeah, probably by the time he comes to court, Tom, he could either be dead or passed on, or a very sympathetic prosecutor who's thinking he's far too old to sit in jail, so house arrest or some kind of probation. So he may not really see any jail time in this situation. So, but we will follow up with any additional news as it becomes available in the future.
All right, let's go ahead and go to our next story. We've got a lot of sports stories today, so I want to make sure that we kind of get to the
Let's get to it.
Yes, sir. So we've got some of you may or may not know this face, depending on whether you watch basketball or WNBA basketball, but one of the greatest players in WNBA history, Candace Parker, has made the final announcement. The three-time WNBA champion has announced her retirement just recently. She was the #1 overall pick in 2008 and played 16 seasons, Jimmy, in the league with the Los Angeles Sparks, the Chicago Sky, and the Las Vegas Aces, all of which, coincidentally enough, won a championship while she was playing with them. And so I don't think that it was a coincidence that they happened to win a championship while she was there. She was also a two-time WNBA MVP and a two-time Olympic gold medalist, Jimmy. So this young lady had an accomplished career, not just in college with the University of Tennessee Lady Volunteers, where she led them to 2 NCAA women's championships, 3 WNBA championships, and then, of course, she actually played and was a leader on 2 Olympic gold medal teams for the women's team as well. But after having 10 surgeries, I believe it was, over her 16-year career, I believe she had an injury late last year. She was playing with the Aces as they were running through one of their playoff teams. She has finally said that her mind, even though wants to, of course, play another couple of years, had to listen ultimately to her body, and she is deciding to call it a wrap. And she is truly, Jimmy, with her accomplishments, the many rings that she's had at all levels, one of the GOATs of the WNBA, which, of course, a lot of folks are spending a lot more time and attention watching now, Jimmy, as it's slowly beginning to emerge as one of the sports that people are paying a little bit more attention to.
It's not slowly emerging as one of the sports people are paying attention
I would say the WNBA is moving slower than NCAA women's basketball.
It is. It has taken a big leap here recently, but up until then, it moved at a snail's pace also. But this doesn't surprise me because this is a tipping point in professional sports, period. It's the renewing of sports heroes. So we're starting to see more and more of the past heroes of sports kind of being recycled out of the game as new, younger stars are emerging. So it's not just the WNBA, but the NBA, and we see this across different sports levels also. So this is just pay attention to what's going on. This is that tipping point. So the previous generation of heroes is slowly fading away and being replaced by a whole new crop of younger stars that will take their place.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later in the show. But I did get a couple of comments I just found very interesting. So Freddie Roberts, who is a historian extraordinaire, said you can add Morgan State University to the list. They will open in fall of 2024. So, Brother Roberts, are you saying that they're going to have a medical school starting in 2024? Let me know. It says Prairie View A&M University was denied the medical school, and the state gave one to the University of Houston and Sam Houston State University using the feasibility study for medical schools in Texas.
Hey, how Sam Houston State get moved ahead of Prairie View?
Well, Jimmy,
I'm not to say anything bad about Sam Houston State. Don't get me wrong, but you generally that name doesn't provoke academia.
It does not, Jimmy. But I will say this: we are living in that kind of a state.
Okay.
That Prairie View got overlooked.
I mean, I would consider that Prairie View more of an academic school over Sam Houston State. Not to say anything bad about Sam Houston State. Don't get me wrong.
No. We're not saying that at all. But I mean, if you would compare.
But if I had to give if I had to award a medical school to a university, and those are the two that it came down to, Prairie View would have definitely gotten my nod.
Well, Jimmy, you need to go talk to your friend in the governor's mansion in Austin and kind of put a bug in his ear about that.
Even the University of Houston, I'm happy for them, but still, I think I would have gave Prairie View the nod over even the University of Houston.
Well, that's the kind of state we live in. But we will say this: I just found this out today, Jimmy, that Prairie View A&M University, and Brother Roberts can acknowledge this himself if my memory serves me correct, they are now the #1 mechanical engineering school in the state of Texas. And that
They've always had a good engineering program.
And that is putting them overall engineering, yes, but they are the #1 in the state of Texas. And that is above Texas A&M University. That is above the University of Houston. I believe one other school that whose name I don't recall, but I want to say that they acknowledge that Prairie View A&M has the #1 mechanical engineering program in the state of Texas. Oh, and Brother Roberts said, A&M, my alma mater, did not fight for the medical school at Prairie View A&M University. I'm not surprised at all about that because they're definitely not fighting for other folks who might have gone to Prairie View A&M University now. So I'm not surprised that the A&M system did not fight because trust, if the A&M University system would have fought for Prairie View to have it, they would have got it.
Right. Okay.
So, all that being said, we want to, of course, acknowledge congratulations to Prairie View A&M University. And, of course, going back to our original story, congratulations to Ms. Candace Parker, who has had a marvelous career. Again, one of the GOATs of the WNBA, and she's got the receipts to show it. She's got the championship. She's got the hardware. I know that she's spent some time as an analyst as well. So, this talented young lady is just shifting gears into, I guess, the next phase of life and her career. So, we, of course, we wish her the best.
We do. What's our next story, T?
All right, let's go to our next story, Jimmy. We got, I guess, what I would consider to be kind of a funny story per se, and this is probably one of
we're going to use a good laugh.
Yeah. Your friend Charles Barkley, Jimmy.
Chucky Chuck.
Yeah, NBA Hall of Famer, now sports analyst Charles Barkley made a statement regarding the hometown of the famous Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles, after which he ended up apologizing, saying, Miss Knowles, I don't want any of that smoke. Well, while discussing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who had swept the New Orleans Pelicans and placing them on the brink of elimination from the first round of the NBA playoffs, Shaquille asked Barkley on TNT's Inside where the Pelicans were going to be heading. For those of you who don't watch TNT's show, whenever a team ends up losing, much less getting swept, they always talk about where they're going fishing for the summer. And so he ended up mentioning Barkley told Shaq that instead of going to Cancun, Mexico, they needed to go to Galveston where they have that dirty A water. Well, the comment got him into a little trouble with Beyonce's mother, and her son-in-law, who happens to be Jay-Z, informed her that Barkley's comment about her hometown, and she took to social media on it, stating, Chuck, we don't play around with Galveston, Texas. You better watch it, sucker. Our water might not be blue, which I can tell you it ain't, but it is still the beach, and we love it. In fact, what you probably don't know is that it is an island. Yes, me and Angie Beyonce still rock our BOI necklaces born on the island. Jay sent this, and I guess that got back to Charles, and after the post, Barkley had to retract and offer an apology to Knowles, admitting that he did not want to deal with her, the Beehive, and Jay-Z. As his co-host read back Knowles' post on air, Barkley looked directly into the camera and spoke to Beyonce's mother, making an apology, which I thought was pretty funny because Charles Barkley don't roll back on too many of his statements.
Well, Tom, on top of that, it's just really newsworthy. Who cares what Charles Barkley has to say? I mean, Charles Barkley is not exactly a Mensa candidate. So I don't think there's anything Charles Barkley has to say that would catch my interest or the interest of anybody else. I'm not even sure why they put him on TV other than he's a round mound of basketball, and they can always count on him to say something fairly stupid and ignorant.
And that's part of it. And I don't think he meant this to be controversial. It wasn't even
controversial. He said the water is dirty down there. So what?
It's not even controversial because, quite frankly, it's the damn truth. Galveston Beach has been, dirty years and years ago. I don't know too many people who ever are looking to go to Galveston Beach unless they're just in the area and don't have any place else to go. And so I thought it was pretty funny that he's making a national apology because of a comment that he made about Galveston Beach because it happened to be Beyonce's mom, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, no disrespect to Beyonce's mom. I don't know who she is. I don't follow her. I don't think she has anything to say that would interest me either. So not that I'm being a snob or anything, but Tom, I only have so much time left. I only have so many hours I can focus on hearing what somebody of interest has to say that may benefit me or that I could pass on to someone else. And Beyonce's mom and Charles Barkley don't come nowhere near getting on that list. So But hey, it is a funny story, so I guess we can all get a laugh out of it.
Well, Jimmy, I mean, there's something that you have mentioned in the past. What is the term that you use for it? When basically somebody wipes somebody out by attacking their image and their brand. Cancel culture. I think that's what you call it.
Yes.
So I thought this was pretty interesting. Maybe he was concerned
So
about
you saying
him.
Beyonce mom canceled Barkley.
Yeah, they I guess he was concerned about
Backed
being
him down, made him apologize.
the next victim of the cancer culture community, Jimmy.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And quite frankly, Galveston Beach is dirty. So I don't know what the big deal is. They can be offended, but Galveston Beach is dirty.
It is. I've only been there once.
Exactly, Jimmy. And this is how many years ago was that big oil spill that jacked it up that they still haven't probably completely cleaned up, probably close to a generation after it happened?
By the time I think I went before the oil spill, and it was dirty back then. It somehow doesn't compare to some of the other beaches in Texas. So I'm not sure why the beach there are so dirty. But hey, people still go there. College kids still go during spring break. So I guess it couldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
So
I guess so, Jimmy. I guess so.
So who's next on our radar?
You know, another sports-related story that I thought was pretty interesting, a face that you and I both know, Jimmy, but he has come up in the news. Came under a lot of scrutiny and some controversy, Jimmy. Reggie Bush, who was a all-time great in college, won the Heisman Trophy Award in 2005, have one of the greatest college seasons of all time, gaining over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, running the ball and catching the ball, scoring 18 touchdowns, leading the USC Trojans to a national title, receiving 784 votes for the Heisman Trophy. You know, and interestingly enough, Jimmy, after that, or not too long after that, got into some hot water and unfortunately had to give up his trophy for a purported, what they call pay for play allegations, where he forfeited his Heisman Trophy in 2010, 5 years after he had won it in a legal battle against the NCAA. Last year, Bush filed a defamation lawsuit against the NCAA and was seeking to get his football records reinstated back into the books because all of those were washed out, and returning his Heisman, led by prominent civil rights attorney, none other than Ben Crump. And this suit was a response to the NCAA attempting to block Bush's request to return his doggone trophy. So, Jimmy, I remember this. You remember this. He had a lot of heat coming from him after that situation. And anyone who knows anything about college athletes and college athletics knows that there's always been boosters who've been making sure that their players, their best players, got some form of remuneration. And this is the thing, Jimmy. Unfortunately, when you are a college athlete, and especially in this case, a football player, you can't get any money. You can't even get a job, Jimmy.
Well, that's changed now, Tom.
I know that it's changed now. We're talking about. I understand that has changed now, but this is the point.
So we understand that what the NCAA was trying to do at the time that they had these draconian rules in place. But the reality is like you said, boosters are going to pay players. The schools now pay players. Players now get paid for their image. A lot of times they're multimillionaires before they even come out of college.
Correct.
Before they even get drafted.
Correct.
So, and then your agent is whoever your agent is fronting you money. A lot of times your family is getting paid under the table. So that's just the nature of where it is now. But overall, I think it allows the system to focus more on really the major evil in sports, which is excuse me, I'm still recovering from the bronchitis, which is gambling, and having the gambling. But now gambling is even legal, and so Tom, a lot of this is becoming more transparent, above board. So this is the right thing to do. In today's age, it doesn't make sense to punish someone for what every damn college star in the country is doing, which is getting paid in some form or fashion.
Exactly, Jimmy. And so you, unfortunately, you have a lot of young people whose careers were derailed. They were blackballed. I know one personally in particular who I went to school with, who was a very standout athlete, whose name I will leave off the airways for today. But these guys, they're in school, they're performing, and let's say this: when it comes to like NCAA basketball and NCAA football, it is a job that they do not get paid for. The school and the NCAA makes billions of dollars. That money is
They do
funneled into
get paid.
the
They get their education paid for.
Jimmy, let's be clear. It is nothing compared to the billions of dollars that are paid to the NCAA and these universities that are funneled to other programs, to other administrations.
That's just a capitalist system.
We understand that, but a capitalist system means that you should be getting paid for your effort and for what your value is.
You get paid
so
for what
you
get paid for what you accept, and you exchange your time, talent, and services for
it was a monopoly, Jimmy. What was the
compensation.
other option? Well, it was a monopoly where they had no option, Jimmy. And so you can have
That's most of it.
your name and your likeness on it. Everybody's getting paid but you.
So when I worked at IBM, I felt I should have gotten paid more for my contribution to overall health of IBM.
But you know what, Jimmy? You can go someplace else and get paid more. In this case, they had no options to go anyplace else and get paid. They had no options to go anyplace else and get paid.
The compensation, no matter where you go, was an education. So that is, and depending on the value of that education, you can go get a more expensive education. Go to somewhere like Harvard. You may not get drafted, but the value of a Harvard degree, I would say, maybe is worth a little bit more than Texas State University.
Okay. Having been in that environment, you and I both know that the priorities for those young people playing football in particular and basketball to a certain degree, the priority is not getting them an education. The priority is for them to perform so they can make money for the school while they're getting paid.
You give them an opportunity, Tom. It's on them.
Yeah, you get an
opportunity.
I understand, Jimmy, but being in that environment, it is very clear what the priorities are, and maybe many of them.
I'm not one time who feels that these athletes are victims. I mean, yes, they do generate a lot of money for the school.
Billions, not a lot. Yes, they do. Billions.
But they also get something out of it. Also, if you don't like the compensation package, you don't have to accept it.
Jimmy, it is.
Tom, you're not guaranteed.
There's no right for you to play. What is the alternative, Jimmy? What is the alternative?
It doesn't matter what your alternatives are. You don't have a right to play sports. It's a privilege.
It is a good thing now that obviously it has gotten to a point where they have turned the corner, but for decades upon decades, it's an exploitation of labor without fair compensation, period.
Okay, Tom, I don't know if labor is ever fair when you come to compensation. No one ever feels they make enough money for what they contribute.
But in most cases, Jimmy, if you're talking about a fair market labor system, you have the option to go to another company and make more. In this case, you cannot go to a college and make more. They wouldn't.
You can't go to a college and make more, Tom, because you can offer. If I can go to the University of Texas, or I'm going to use Texas State again, or Texas State, which degree is more valuable? The degree from the University of Texas degree is going to be more valuable than anything I receive out of Texas State. So you can go somewhere else and get a more valuable.
Comparing apples and oranges, Jimmy. If you come from a poor neighborhood, you can't even afford to. If you're from across the country, you're in California, you're going to school in Texas, you can't even afford to get a flight to go back home because guess what? You can't make any money.
Okay.
You can't even go see your family.
That's not totally true. They find a way to sneak these kids
money.
I know
they sneak
they have a laundry fund, Tom. They always sneak them money to do their laundry.
But guess who gets to do it and who doesn't? And if they get caught, boosters don't get in trouble.
So. Well, anyway, that's the system, Tom.
If they get caught, the boosters don't get in trouble. The person who's
boosters don't get in trouble because the boosters end up paying
Of
for the
course.
coaches and the ADs.
Of course.
But
And that's the point.
but the bottom line is, Tom, these kids are not victims. They know the system they're walking
Not
into.
anymore.
Whatever
Not anymore.
conversation,
They're not
whatever
being exploited
conversation
anymore.
they decide to accept in the form of a scholarship is their compensation. You don't have to
No.
take it. Nobody's forcing you to take it. If you don't think it's valuable enough, there's not enough in it for you, go do something else. Just use your time and talent to go do something else, like the rest of us, who have to go fight for jobs. There's never been a time, no
There's
matter
no
what my
option
salary
for them
was,
to do
that I
something
thought my
else to
salary
get paid.
was
Jimmy,
commensurate to what I should
in
make.
their case, Jimmy, there's no option for them to go someplace else and get paid for what they do. And it is a job.
Tom,
It is a job.
you say this as if they're required to do this or somehow have a right to do this. They don't. This is option. This is a privilege.
I said nothing about a right to do it. It is about the exploitation of labor.
And so, Tom, let me say this. When the car came along, what happened to the guys who were expert buggy makers? They can go wherever they want to saying, well, I'm a SME at what I do. I'm the best buggy maker in the world. But guess what? There's there's not a market for buggies anymore. So I don't have the right to just sit there and demand that a fair market system, as you put it, pay me based on what I think I'm worth or compensate me. It's all based on what you can do for me and how we can make money. I can't make money off of you, Tom, because you're the best buggy maker in the world, but everybody's moved on to cars and you don't know anything about cars. Well, you SOL. That's just the way it is, Tom. I'm sorry.
But you're comparing apples to oranges in this case. Everybody is making money on their labor but them. That was the problem. Everybody was making money on their labor. The school was making labor. The coaches were making labor.
Tom,
The coaches
you tell
were
that.
making. But why
You tell that to the kid. You tell that to the kid who worked at UPS at night, and every week that I got paid, the next morning had to walk my check and sign over to the bursar to pay my way through school. So you tell that to the kids who are working, but I don't know if they do it anymore, but who I did, about whether that education, having a scholarship, means something or not.
Oh, I never said it didn't mean anything. That is not what I said. But that person who's working at UPS, guess what? They can go to another organization and get a job and get paid more if they choose to. These student athletes cannot.
Yeah, UPS was the best paying job I could find at the time, John. Tom is a college student.
I understand. But at least you had the option to go someplace else and get paid.
No, I didn't. Where else was I going to go, Tom? There was no DHS at the time. There was no other shipping company besides the post office.
You could have done something else.
In New Orleans.
It didn't have to do that.
Work at a convenience store for minimum wage. Man, UPS was one of the best paying jobs at the time in New Orleans.
Well, then you were in the best paying job that you could find at the time. But it was paying. It was paying.
And I gladly, guess what, Tom? Guess what? I gladly gave up that 10 to 2 a.m. shift paid for a scholarship from the U.S. government to pay for my education. That's how valuable that scholarship is. Gladly gave that paid job up to get a scholarship and a free ride. Anyway, let's move on. What's our next story?
All right, Jimmy, we're going to go to that. I have a couple of comments. It looks like attorney Elisa is on the line. So we want to welcome her. Says they deserve to get paid. It's a job to be an athlete. My brother even said it. He played actually college basketball. Let me see here. Frederick Roberts, athletes are doing much better now. Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah, they're doing it. They're starting to get some revenue share.
Yep, $30,000 a year for education, nothing compared to millions. Marion Square, welcome, Ms. Square. Thank you for joining us. Those athletes have crazy work schedules. I know that, certainly for sure. Everybody ain't built for education like everyone ain't built for athletics. Okay, interesting comment. I've spoken with athletes and they said when off the team, they become invisible. That I've seen personally, and that is true. Marion, let me see, that's what my brother said. You just another number. What else we got here? You are oversimplifying conditions and what's up. All right, those are great comments. Want to thank you for
great comments. Thank you so much, everyone.
Absolutely, and continue to bring it. So again, congratulations to Reggie Bush for getting back what he earned while he was not getting paid. Well, he probably was at USC. And hopefully he is able to, of course, extend his career as an analyst and whatever else he decides to do. But again, congratulations, and hope you continue to have a successful career off the field as much as you did on the field. All right, Jim, let's go to our next story. This is another story that we have covered in the past, and just a quick update. A federal appeals court just ruled this past Friday and upheld that singer and songwriter R. Kelly's conviction for 20 years in prison is going to be upheld on child sex convictions. In Chicago in 2022, juries convicted the Grammy Award-winning R&B singer on 3 charges of producing child sexual abuse images and 3 charges of enticement of minors for sex. In the appeal, Kelly argued that the Illinois former and shorter statute of limitations on child sex crime prosecutions should have applied to his case rather than current law permitting charges while an accuser is still alive. The appeal also argued that the charges involved one accuser should have been tried separately from the charges tied to 3 other accusers due to video evidence that became a focal point of the Chicago trial. We will not go into that video, boy. Federal prosecutors used a video showing Kelly abusing a young girl. The accuser, identified only as Jane, testified that she was only 14 when the video was taken. And so the 3-panel judge, 3-judge panel from Chicago-based 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals Friday ruling noted that the jurors acquitted Kelly on only 7 of the 13 counts against him, even after viewing those abhorrent tapes. In a written statement, Kelly's attorneys, Jennifer Bunjean, said they plan to seek the U.S. Supreme Court review of this decision, trying to get his sentence shortened.
Okay, Tom, I think I'm going to go on record now and early by saying that this is not going to go anywhere. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to grant cert and even review this case. I'm not sure if there was any errors made. I mean, they can claim they are, but generally there has to be something that either there's a conflict between courts, where one court ruled one way, another ruled another way, or there was a major violation by the court system. This man's been tried multiple times, Tom. Some cases he was acquitted, hung juries, and he just happened to get convicted. But let's stay with reality. The reality is this man is guilty of a ton of sexual crimes and abuse towards kids. And he should be in jail right along with some of these parents who pimped their daughters out for this to happen simply because he was a star and they figured there was a chance to make some money and get paid. So he shouldn't be the only one in jail. But for his part, 20 years, we may have to serve 10, is a bargain to me for what he's done. I would say man up, do your time, and get on with your life.
Yeah, Jimmy, I can't disagree with you. And, he's also going to have to realize that he is not Harvey Weinstein, whose case was overturned here recently.
Harvey, like I said, there was a violation in the way that the trial was executed by bringing in witnesses and evidence that did not relate to the charges. That was just stupid on the prosecutor part. Who was the prosecutor? Fathead Braggs, which making a juvenile junior mistake. He should have known better. Stick. You have a ironclad case. Bring your witnesses in, present the evidence. Weinstein was going to get convicted. There's no way anybody was going to acquit him. Period. In the whole Me Too movement, you didn't have to do the extra, which jeopardized your case like he did. Now they're going to have to retry the case, which I'm pretty sure they will, and he'll get convicted again. But this is just when prosecutors do dumb stuff, the courts may have to step in because there is a major violation there. But in the case of R. Kelly here, yeah, dude, be lucky he was only 20. Do your 10 and get on with your life. I mean, I'm not saying don't appeal. Take advantage of every legal option you can.
Of course, do that.
Yeah. So it's not going to hurt to request the Supreme Court review your case. I just don't think it's going to go very far. I don't think they're going to even look at it. So, but anyway, that's just my opinion. Non-legal. I'm not a lawyer. I
Well,
did go
Jimmy,
to
of
law
course,
school, though.
as we all know, you did take some law school classes.
I did go to law school, but I'm not a lawyer. And the only reason I went because the government was paying for it. So that's the whole free scholarship, the benefit of it.
Well, maybe okay. So we do have some opinions of our resident expert. You know, he needs to give it up. Hello, Miss Carol. Thank you for joining the show and joining. If they review, they will make an example out of him. It's a conservative Trump Supreme Court. He stands no chance if they even pick it up. Of course, they have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. So he says, I agree, Jimmy, parents need to be locked up as well. So it looked like you and our resident attorney are on the same page as far as that's concerned. It's not going in.
Do you really want to be on a court, an appeals court, that overturned the conviction of a child molester? Some of these girls were as young as 14 times, and the things that you were doing on these videotapes, come on. If I'm that judge, there's no way. I don't care what the violation was. And I don't think the Supreme Court is willing to let child molesters out of jail or give them a new trial. Even before the trial starts, if I'm on the jury, I'm already saying guilty just based on what I know about R. Kelly.
Gotcha. All right, Jimmy, let's go to a couple of more shorts, Jimmy, and then we're out because we got about 9 minutes left. I don't know, because I know if it ain't the Cowboys playing, but they were involved in what happened last Thursday through Saturday, and that is called the NFL draft. So let's talk a couple of minutes about, who we think really came out like a fat cat and who just made some boneheaded decisions on the NFL draft. Of course, we don't have time to do an entire analysis, but I would say there are probably a couple of interesting picks and selections that got some people's attention. Of course, I know you were paying attention to the Cowboys. I don't know if you even thought about anybody else, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the NFL draft.
Tom, you can't judge the effectiveness or even grade in the NFL draft until 3 years after the draft.
I would say this. Who in principle do you think really made themselves better?
You won't know for 3 years. And the way you judge drafts is how many starters you pick up and how effective people are.
Again, if you pick, we have 7 rounds now, no longer 8. And if you pick up some folk that can fill in some gaps immediately, like the Cowboys need, of course, on the offensive line, or if you need a quarterback like several teams did, well then, yeah, you can't say for sure that they're going to perform at a high level, but hopefully they're better than what you
go back a couple of years and grade the 49ers draft, taking a quarterback in the 7th round, which is pretty much garbage, last pick of the draft.
Yes.
Nobody's going to think very highly of that draft. 3 years into where we are now you look back on that draft and you say, boy, that was genius on their part. That was a great draft. Look what you got out of it. So you can't really grade a draft until these guys get a chance to be on that field, see what they can do. Because out of that, there are going to be some late rounders that emerge.
We're going to overperform and some high draft picks that are not going to perform. I mean,
Dak was a 4th round quarterback, and he's not co-MVP, but he was runner-up for MVP of the league.
Correct.
But then you got a bunch of 1st round top 10 picks that wash out.
Well, Jimmy, I can tell you this much. I knew who Dak Prescott was when he was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys back then. And so I knew what they had, even though Jerry Jones probably didn't. And so I could have told him, you got a good value in the 4th round for Dak Prescott, because that dude was a straight dog. And I don't mean dog in a bad way. The boy could ball.
And then the other thing you have to factor in.
For him to be a 4th round draft pick, he overperformed. For him to be a 4th round draft pick.
How well an organization can produce players, train them, teach them, prepare them. And the Cowboys, despite our owner, GM, being a disruptive force, the system itself still produces 10 to 12 wins a year, divisional titles. They can't quite get over the hurdle and get to a Super Bowl or a championship, but they do have some success in producing some winning teams. And so that's really and that's all you can really ask from every team if you're a fan, is that your team is doing its best to produce winners. So the Cowboy organization knows how to. And then look at it again, Tom. You had 9 Pro Bowlers this year. They led the league in Pro Bowl. And so the Cowboy players are really that great? I say not. Not across 9 positions.
That doesn't mean anything when you can't get past the division round.
That's my point, Tom, is that when you're grading the effectiveness of a draft, there are a lot of different things that come into play.
Oh, I would agree.
And all these grades that people throw out initially don't mean anything. So ask me 3 years from now. This is 2024. So ask me in 2027 about the 2024 draft.
Unless, except for some certain analysts, nobody's looking back 3 years. But I will say this. What they do say is for folks who have gaping needs and holes on their roster, they at least measure them. Did they go back and fill some holes that they felt?
Everybody drafts with a need, Tom.
There's nobody who is going to sit up and say, well, you know what? The draft doesn't matter. It's a marketing tool, and I definitely get that.
Tom, it does matter. Everybody drafts for their needs, but you can't give a grade to it for at least 2 to 3 years. So when Dak was drafted, nobody was giving the Cowboys A+ ratings for that draft.
No, of course.
But the Cowboys have gotten some really good players out of the draft. And they continue to find a way.
They always get good players out of the draft, but the reality of it is,
okay, then we give them a good grade. We give them a good grade initially for drafting well. They
don't develop players, and they don't produce conference.
Tom, they do develop players. They got 9 Pro Bowlers.
Jimmy,
what are you saying? They don't produce talent?
I said they pick great players, but they don't develop the team in order to get them to the next level, which is at least a conference championship. And
okay, I give you that.
And the fact that you have that many, when you have that many great players.
First of all, the Cowboys are not sitting here picking up first rounders.
Let me finish. If you are able to develop consistently that many Pro Bowl caliber players on a year in, year out basis, generally speaking, and you cannot get them to a conference championship, much less Super Bowl, in 30 years. And the Cowboys perennially have one of the better rosters in the league. Every year to year, they have one of the better, not best, but one of the better.
I thought we were talking about drafting, Tom.
We were, but then of course you said it doesn't matter. But since you said it doesn't matter, we're talking about something else.
Well, I'm saying you can't judge it because you're always going to give a grade based on the players that you pick up. And you don't know what they're going to turn into. Nobody thought Dak was going to turn into an MVP.
A good caliber player. They thought it would be a decent backup quarterback. Well, why don't we do this, Jimmy? We got about 2 minutes left. What are your thoughts on the NBA first round? The Lakers are out. Of course, the Golden State Warriors didn't even get in because they got bounced. The Lakers got a gentleman's sweep. Let me see. The Clippers and the Mavericks are playing right now. And
I'm gonna go leave the show and
the Pelicans got bounced. And it's interestingly, it's a little bit more competitive in the East than in the West. But to your earlier point, some of the so-called best players of the last generation, they're out in the first round. That would
this is a tipping point.
That would be KD and that would be Curry.
If you like the past generation of stars, you can enjoy them because they're on their last leg. LeBron, AD, KD, Bronson up in New York.
Which the Mavericks should still have.
Okay. You know what? If I had to decide between Bronson and then Kyrie, I'd take Kyrie any day of the week, plus twice on Sunday. He's just that much better of a sport player. But the stars are aging, Tom. They're getting older. Their ability to bring the game and affect the game in and game out over an 82-game season and doing playoffs where things get tougher. They just can't do it anymore. The younger players are slowly squeezing them out. So appreciate whatever star from the last generation you enjoy.
Well, they're at their prime. Well, we got one story. We got one comment, Jimmy, and then we're going to drop because it's 9 o'clock. Ms. Elisa, what about Zeke? The Cowboys just re-signed Zeke to a 1-year deal, $3 million or something like that.
He playing for the minimum. What
Yeah.
about him?
She said, "What about Zeke?" I guess I guess maybe she's asking, "What are your thoughts on Zeke?" She knows you're a big Cowboys fan. Coming
Yeah,
back
I'm
to
a big
Cowboys.
Cowboy fan, and I think what the Cowboys are preparing themselves for is to go back to a style of football that's more roughneck, straight ahead blocking that you just have to win in the trenches. They're going to redevelop that offensive line, and for a player that's not a Barry Sanders type player, doesn't have a lot of top speed anymore, but runs well between the tackles. I think he'll do well in that style of football play, provided he has some mooses and buffaloes and bulls in front of him to block. If he
Which
doesn't
they
have
don't have.
that, then he won't be effective. But I think the Cowboys.
He does not, and he does not have that. Cowboys would do
Tom,
what
we won't. Okay, okay, Tom. This is where you need to be
since it
patient
takes 3
and wait
years,
and
Jimmy.
see before you declare that he
Well,
doesn't have that.
Well, Jimmy, did they have
let's
it
see.
last year?
We
No.
drafted some players.
And since they just picked up a couple of offensive linemen in the draft that are clearly going to take 3 years to develop, then they're going to have pretty
No,
much
it's not going to take 3 years to develop, Tom. Some of them develop right away. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to see how effective they are, to see if it was a good draft or
It would
not.
be a generational talent, Jimmy, at offensive tackle or guard for them to immediately, not that they can't come in and be functional or a serviceable offensive lineman, but at the end of the day,
Tom, I'm going to tell you the secret to evaluate the draft.
The Cowboys are going to do
evaluate the draft.
The Cowboys are going to do what the Cowboys do, which is going to be better than average, and that's about it. They'll get bounced in the first round.
Okay, that's still better than most teams in the league. But here's my way to grade a draft. Let me slow down here. My thoughts are getting ahead of me. Is after your rookie deal, do you get re-signed by the team that drafted you? And so that's how you can judge on whether it was a good draft or not. If you look up in 4 years ago, the 7 players you drafted are all gone, you're not re-signing any of them, then that was a bad draft. If you look up in 3 or 4 of those are all-pro or considered all-pro, second, third string, all-pro team, and you're going to re-sign them to a new 5-year deal, 4-year deal, then it was a good draft. But you can't tell until they have actually played and contribute to see what they can do. And like I said, if a team re-signs you, all rookie contracts now 4 years plus a 5th-year option. So if they re-sign you to a second-year deal, basically that's the contract you get paid on. Okay, fine. Then it was a good draft pick. If they don't, how many Cowboy players are playing with other teams because the Cowboys wouldn't re-sign them?
And they're not going to play them. At the end of the day, God bless them. The Cowboys are the most valuable franchise. If they're not number 1, they're number 2.
They're number 1, $12 billion.
I thought that their objective, of course, was to win Super Bowls, which Jerry Jones says, but he doesn't show. So
that's your goal. If you don't know how to do it,
and they don't. Well, you know what? If you could get out of your own way, and I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about
Jerry's not the problem, Tom. Jerry's not on the field. Jerry's not throwing the ball, running the ball.
So you give him a pass because he's the person who's not willing to hire.
Jerry doesn't block. He doesn't tackle.
Jimmy, you know this. When you get to the playoffs, everybody is good. Everybody is better than average. And so when you get to the playoffs, it takes more than just talent. It takes coaching as well that makes the difference between those who
Jerry on that.
To the playoffs.
Hard to coach
championships. You know this. Everybody's good when you get to the playoffs.
Okay, but Tom, you blame it on Jerry saying if you can get out the way. If Jerry was out of the way, nothing would change. If you don't know how to win a Super Bowl.
If Jerry would quit hiring coaches who only say yes to him, maybe they would make progress.
Okay, that's a theory.
No, that is a fact. Look at the last 30 years, Jimmy. Come on, please.
Okay, and then look at coaches who know how to win Super Bowls like Andy Reid versus our coach and 30 other coaches.
Even know the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs?
It doesn't matter, Tom, if you know him or not.
It does matter, Jimmy. It does
knowing
matter.
The coach, knowing the owner is not stopping you from winning the Super Bowl.
No, the problem
whether Andy Reid is good friends with the owner, bad friends, a yes man or no man, it doesn't matter. Andy Reid knows how to build a team to win Super Bowls.
He is an above average general manager, but he is a distraction. That is
Tom,
why
what
the Cowboys.
distraction?
He is a distraction.
No.
What
Okay.
What legit coach would want to work for Jerry? He is a distraction. You can't coach a team
You know what?
dealing with Jerry.
If
So
you're a
I hope
coach,
you're right, Jimmy. I hope you're
if
I hope
you
you're
are
right,
a coach,
and that he is going to call it a wrap next year.
if
Maybe
you are
we
a
will have a
coach,
chance.
if you're
Maybe
a coach
when Steven
who
takes
knows
over,
how to win Super
a real
Bowls,
coach will
then
have a
it
chance.
doesn't matter who the owner is. How much of a distraction is. If you're a
He
coach
is a
who knows how to
distraction.
win Super Bowls, it
Okay,
doesn't matter. None of that matters.
he
But
is
if
a
you don't know how to win
distraction.
Super Bowls, guess what? Then everything matters. So that's how it is. So when I hear all these finger pointing at Jerry Jones, I know he could be a distraction, but so
He
what?
is a
Jerry's
distraction.
not on the
He is a
field.
distraction.
Jerry's not coaching the players. You are. You
Oh,
and the
he is.
players have to accept responsibility for your lack of a championship.
He is making
You're making
decisions.
excuses pointing
He
at
is
Jerry.
making decisions through whomever he chooses as coach.
Okay, Tom, well, you know what we say about excuses. They build bridges and
And
monuments to
what,
nowhere.
and what is their excuse for the last 30 years with the rosters they've had?
Well, Tom, it seemed like we seem to be pointing the finger more at Jerry than pointing the finger where it belongs, to the players. The players are just not getting it done.
So
The
all
coaches are
the
not
players
getting it
over
done.
the last
And
30
they
years,
have nothing to do with Jerry.
all the players over the last 30 years are the reasons they haven't won.
Well, Tom, yes. Look at take any other team that haven't won the Super Bowl in 30 years. What would be their cause? Well, you don't even know the owner.
Jimmy, it comes down to coaching.
Okay, coaching and playing. You have to have the
Because
players
I understand that.
get the job
If,
done.
if you have a roster, which the Cowboys have never had a bad roster, it comes down to coaching.
I mean, when the last time the Redskins won a Super Bowl? They've gone longer than the Cowboys.
They won a Super Bowl since the Cowboys have. Trust, yes.
95?
Yes. They won a the Giants have won three.
Not Giants, I said the Redskins.
I mean, the Redskins have won a Super Bowl since the Cowboys.
I don't think the Redskins have won a Super Bowl since 95. You can Google it real quick. I don't think so. I mean, their last Super Bowl was back in the 80s, 70s. Doug Williams, I think.
I stand corrected. You're correct. 1992. The Giants have won 3. The Giants have won 3. Philadelphia has won 3. The Redskins won 2. Matter of fact, you are correct. But the Giants, the Giants and the Eagles have both won a cumulative of 5 or 6. The Redskins won one in 1992.
Okay, and so Tom, there are a lot of teams that are in that same boat.
Practically every team, with the exception of, I can count on less than one hand the number of teams that have won a Super Bowl since the Cowboys won their last one.
Okay,
I can count it on one hand.
There's only a handful of coaches that know how to coach and win a Super Bowl. And,
a lot of them have.
Their teams.
And
they're not sitting around making excuses and pointing the finger at the owners. They're getting the job done, Tom. And so there's a difference. But we know how to win division titles. We just don't know how to win conference titles, and we don't know how to win Super Bowls.
You are correct. And that comes down to coaching. When you get to that level, everybody is good. It takes a little bit more to get to a championship and win it than having good players.
And so let's start holding the coaches more responsible.
The Cowboys
players as opposed to pointing the finger at Jerry Jones.
Mike McCarthy can't even handle clock management.
Well,
how are you going to get somebody to the Super Bowl and you can't handle clock management?
Well, if you keep pointing the finger at Jerry Jones and overlooking Mike McCarthy.
He hired him, Jimmy. He hired him.
Once again, then more public pressure needs to be put on the coach as opposed to the owner. As long as you focus on Jerry, then
who hired the coach?
These stupid hires, the coach or a team will become acceptable and palatable.
The coach.
No one's complaining about Mike.
The last time I checked, the coach doesn't hire himself.
No, he doesn't. So anyway, we're way over time. We're going to have to pick up the conversation next week. When we come back next Wednesday. There's still a couple of stories we didn't finish out. And we'll see if we can pick them up next week. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, feel free to reach out to us, share information, because like we say, this is your show also, and this is a platform to share information. And so we want everyone to get involved with the information sharing. Let us know what's going on in your town or with your family, with birthdays. You don't have to be a celebrity to get on the birthday list.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah, you got some family member has a birthday coming up, let us know. We'll be glad to announce it. So that being said, Tom, I'm gonna give you the last words as we close out.
We want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. We want to thank you for your support. We want to thank all of our folks on the chat line for chiming in and giving us some great feedback and questions. And of course, we will see you next week on, I believe it will be May the 8th, because of course it is, if it is Wednesday night, it will be Black Men Speak. Good night, everyone.
Correct.